Metricon, Australia's largest volume home builder. They do over 6,000 houses in Australia every single year. And this interview with the CEO, Brad Duggan, was absolutely fascinating.
How much do you really think prices have gone up over the last 24 years?
I can tell you, like from, it's like for like house from 2019 to 2025 would be about 50%. Now, like for like's not really relevant anymore because people can't afford those houses. So, what people were looking for, a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom, double story, now looking for 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, single story. You're seeing a big decrease in contract values.
Big decrease in contract values, as well as the size of the house itself with less bedrooms, but you're paying more for it, a lot more for it. 50% would be conservative. So Brad, how do you feel about cost plus contracts?
I couldn't sleep at night knowing that I'm paying cost plus in terms of arrangement because things could change quite quickly. So that alone, regardless about any other price differential.
This is not a hit piece on Metricon. Metricon have a place in the Australian building industry that's really important, especially for providing homes. But let's not forget that it was Metricon who cancelled hundreds and hundreds of fixed price building contracts in 2023 when it looked like they were about to lose a shit ton of money and collapse.
It can obviously compromises in what we're getting in terms of the size of the home, and maybe that's a good thing, right? Climate change. Do we need homes that big? Heat them, cool them, etc. Right?
I'm fucked if I know why climate change has got anything to do with the conversation around how we're going to provide houses and builders to stop collapsing in this economy right now. Those climate change shouldn't even come into the conversation, but everyone wants to throw it in there as the reason why we're committing hara-kiri on the altar of fucking green ideology and why we have hundreds of thousands of people without a fucking house over their head. Let's check out more of this.
Governments are in a lot of debt and need more taxes, right? Particularly where you are in Melbourne. So did the government need to start taking a bit of a haircut to play its role here and actually make it a bit easier for you to actually be able to produce more affordable housing?
Yeah, and it definitely is true, but it's in time, not so much in dollars, if you know what I mean.
Brad's not concerned about the amount of money your government's taking in taxes. What he's concerned about is time. Let's check out his answer.
I was at a site just yesterday, beautiful 40 square home, double story. We built it in 110 days. It was in planning for 2.5 years. So imagine the cost. So it's not like that's not necessarily taxes. Like, sure, there would have been council rates, there would have been potentially land tax to be paid during that period of time, but it was all the costs associated with the delay caused by the regulation that is going into that number that HIA has put together. So, someone sat on a mortgage for that land and probably paying rent somewhere for 2.5 years just for some bureaucracy, council who I'm sure are doing it from what they think is the betterment of the community and the protection of the assets of the people in the street. But 2.5 years to get a planning approval is just, it's absurd.
Of course it's ridiculous. 2.5 years to get a planning approval for a house is the dumbest thing you could ever conceive of. But this is the multi-layered blob bureaucracy that's been built and baked into every part of this country now. Brad, to his credit, made a really good point there when he spoke about the absurdity of the bureaucracy.
It's just crazy. And, the federal government, I feel, I've been critical sometimes in the past, but I think they're almost like, hiding to nothing. They actually don't have the levers. They're not in charge of the levers to make a difference. The lever is some guy called Dave sitting at the Bayside City Council down here in the suburb where I live. And, it's really hard to reach in and make those changes.
It's actually really easy to rectify the issue of Dave down at your local council sitting on those applications and dragging heels and saying no constantly. Your local council exists by an act of legislation. There is no room in the Constitution for your local council. It is not recognised as a level of government and only exists as a result of legislation that's been passed at state and federal levels. If you want to rein Dave in, all you have to do is amend the legislation. It's that simple. It's not a constitutional change. This isn't a difficult piece of legislation or law to get through at state or federal government. You just need willpower. Your housing crisis is 100% man-made. The collapse of all the builders around the country is 100% man-made. And your government, with its fat fucking fingers, has got them in the pie, fleecing everyone of every single dollar. The interview with CEO of Metricon Brad Duggan was on a podcast called The Elephant in the Room. I found it on YT YouTube, and I'm sure you guys can find it as well if you wanted to dig it out. There was a lot of really interesting info in there. Brad did a really good job of answering some of that stuff. He's completely fucking wrong on a bunch of things, but he also touched on some stuff that's really fucking accurate. Metricon definitely aren't saints. Look, they've made their mistakes, as have plenty of people in the building industry. But they're still here, they're still trading, and they're Japanese owned.